You know that moment. Something hurts you and you go completely silent. While others might see this as a cold or calculated choice to shut them out, it is a survival mechanism taking over the body. As the tension in the room rises, the pressure to speak becomes physically heavy. Words feel out of reach. The prospect of explaining a pain you haven't yet processed feels like a genuine impossibility. Clinical psychology identifies this sequence of physical events as a biological response to emotional pain. It is an involuntary shift in how the nervous system handles distress. This silence is a biological shield. It operates according to a specific design, triggered when the brain decides that processing the internal state is more important than participating in an external argument. This process starts in the seconds after a hurtful comment lands. While the conversation continues around you, your internal focus shifts entirely to the sudden impact of that stimulus. Trauma researcher Dr. Peter Levine identified this as the hardwired freeze response. When emotional pain feels too massive to handle in real time, the brain pulls an emergency brake to slow down the system and manage the overwhelm. This state is known as emotional flooding. It changes how your anatomy functions. As the deep structures of the brain pulse with activity, the frontal regions responsible for language lose power. Neurologically, forming a spoken sentence becomes a struggle when these specific regions are inhibited. When a person is standing in front of you demanding an answer, the words are physically harder for the brain to access. To an observer, this looks like stubbornness or a refusal to cooperate. They see a person who has chosen to become a brick wall. This physical reaction prioritizes the survival of the nervous system over the maintenance of a conversation. The brain is focusing its resources on holding the individual together. This defense often has roots in early childhood. Environments that treat vulnerability as an inconvenience or a reason for punishment teach the nervous system that expressing hurt out loud is a risk. If opening up in the past led to being mocked or ignored, the brain adapted by building a quiet shield. Silence became the most logical way to protect oneself from further harm. Back in the present conflict, that shield is still active, but beneath the stillness, the mind is engaged in deep cognitive processing. This scan shows cerebral blood flow under stress. High-intensity red and yellow regions indicate areas tied to memory and self-reflection are highly active. This activity is an internal stress test, analyzing past patterns and predicting outcomes before a single word is spoken. In this state, the mind works through the conflict with a high level of internal detail. Far from avoiding the problem, the person is thoroughly examining every angle of it. This diagram represents the window of tolerance, the emotional zone where productive communication happens. When a person is flooded, their internal state spikes violently above this zone, making clear conversation impossible. Remaining quiet is often a conscious choice to wait until the system returns to this window. It is a way of protecting the relationship from the damage that unfiltered, raw pain can cause during a confrontation. External pressure to just talk creates a paradox. Being pushed to react immediately confirms the fear that emotions are only valid if they are immediate and available on someone else's schedule. Safety is the prerequisite for returning to the conversation. Resolution requires patience without pressure, allowing the individual the space they need to process. In a fast-paced world that rewards the loudest and fastest reactions, this slow, careful method of moving through pain is often misunderstood. Because these words arrive only after they are ready, they carry significant weight. They represent conclusions that have been checked for truth and fairness, rather than reactions used to win an argument. Waiting to find the truth behind the pain demonstrates emotional integrity. It is a commitment to saying only what is actually meant. Stillness serves as a form of presence, a deliberate and considered way of navigating a conflict. Finding the right people means finding those who can sit in that silence until the shield is no longer needed.